Today I'm going to compare some Bitcoin financial vehicles. One being Strike from MicroStrategy, which pays out a dividend. As you can see here, I'm showing that on the screen. They're claiming to provide an 8% yield over the years. And I'm going to start the comparison when this strike was offered in um, January 31st, 2025. And as you can see, it's gone quite a bit up. Bitcoin's been doing pretty well as well. And my goal here is to compare the yield and the appreciation of this vehicle, Bitcoin vehicle, versus IBIT with a covered call strategy. If you're not familiar with covered calls, let me know in the description and I can do a video on that as well. But basically, it's a vehicle where you can buy IBIT, which is based on the spot Bitcoin price, and then generate a monthly income off of that, so you don't have to actually sell your your security. So, with that being said, let me go into the spreadsheet to talk about the details. So what I did was I went through, and if we bought each of these, which is Strike, which is the MicroStrategy's 8% yield tool based on Bitcoin, IBIT, which is the spot ETF, MicroStrategies himself, if you just would have bought that stock, which doesn't pay a dividend, or if you just bought Bitcoin and held it, or if you just bought the NASDAQ, which is represented in QQQ as a stock. So as you can see, I took the same date that the strike was being offered, the price of it at the time um, on January 31st, and then everything, the cost of each of these would be $5,771. The reason why I picked that is because in order to do covered calls, you have to have a minimum of 100 shares. So in the IBIT case, if you needed 100 shares, the price at that time was $57.71 times 100 is $5,771. So with that amount, you could have bought 71 shares of Strike. You could have bought 17 shares of MicroStrategies. You could have had 0.06 of the Bitcoin, and you could have bought 11 shares of QQQ. Now today's price, this is today's price, which is May 23rd, 2025. You can see that MicroStrategy has gone up, IBIT's gone up, MicroStrategies has gone up, Bitcoin has gone up, and then QQQ, which is actually the only one that's gone down since the 31st of January. And this is to be the total value that you would have today, and this is the gain that you would have realized. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the dividends and the covered calls next. So this section here is covering the dividends and the covered calls. As you can see in February, Strike didn't offer a dividend, but you could have did a covered call on the IBIT, your holdings of IBIT, you could have made $93. Here's the date of expiration. This was the strike price, and then this was the premium. I use a 0.20 delta in determining this every month to figure out which is the best premium to go with. And as you can see in March, that's the day that Strike actually paid a dividend. They paid They paid a $1.24 per share. The premium that we got for the IBIT was 113, and the QQQ's dividend was 71 cents a share, and that worked out to $88, $113, and $79. I mean $7.92. And then in April, we got collect another covered call of 86, and then in May we collected 74. So we're in May right now. The total of dividends collected, as you can see, Strike, we've collected $88 on that 5,700. We've collected $300 on that 5,700 and $7 on that 5,700 for QQQ. Now overall, if you add them up together, from a dividend perspective, we've collected about 1.5 for dividend in under 4 months. We've collected 6 dividends in under 4 months here, 0.1 dividend. And then this is the gains and loss percentages. And I have some charts for this. So if you look here, If you would have just invested in Strike STRK, you've and that $5,000, you'd be had a profit of $1,500. It's really nice. IBIT, you would have been the year to date, you'd be up $778, the second best. And then MicroStrategies, you would have made about the middle tier best solution. And then, believe it or not, if you just would have bought Bitcoin and held it to this date, you would have only made $300 on that $5,000 investment. And then, if you would have bought the NASDAQ, you actually would have been in negative. This is the percentage gains and loss. And as you can see, within 4 months, you would have made 26%, which is just crazy numbers. And I bet you would have made 13%, also crazy numbers. MicroStrategy 10%, and respectable 5% in 4 months. Not bad for Bitcoin. Of course, you would have lost in in the market. And then this is the dividend yield. This is what I think is what we're going to watch over the year. So you can see you're able to generate a huge dividend yield versus just buying a financial vehicle like Strike. It would be 1.54%. We're up to 6% in 4 months, which is just crazy. MicroStrategies and Bitcoin don't return a dividend or a covered call. You could do covered calls actually on this if you wanted to, which if we wanted to, I could go back and do a covered call against MicroStrategies and see if there's value there. And then the QQQ's dividend is 0.14%. So we're going to track this for the rest of the year and see how it turns out, whether Strike or IBIT with covered calls would have been a better strategy. Only time will tell. If you would like to hear more about covered call strategy, feel free to put that in the comments, and I'll do another video on that. Or if you have any questions or comments, we look forward to your input. Have a good day.